actually happened. The Yanks take the series at the Trop against the Rays 2 out of 3. And it wasn't pretty at all. And I still think that this lineup is really not good at all. And things are becoming problematic COVID-wise, injury-wise. So there is that. But still, the Yankees were only able to muster 5 runs the entire series, but they were able to take 2 out of 3. And there's something to be said for that. Yankees typically find ways to lose against the Rays, especially at Tropicana Field, but they were able to win this series, and that's kind of been their thing lately. Would it be nice if they maybe could add a few more sweeps in the mix? Yes. But in this situation, I said before the series I'd be thrilled with 2 out of 3, and that's exactly what happened. So that's a big series win for the Yankees. Now, what had transpired right before the series began was a major COVID problem in the Yankee clubhouse, mainly involving the coaching staff. So they were actually one of the first teams that got to that 85% vaccination. And I believe that basically the team had used Johnson & Johnson, which, as we're seeing, is apparently less effective. But I think the reason why they did it was because for Johnson & Johnson, you only have to get one vaccine as opposed to Pfizer or Moderna where there's 2. Not to get into a whole thing about that, but this kind of came as a surprise, and they call it a breakthrough positive. So Phil Nevin was the first name that we heard, and Phil Nevin, the third base coach, had symptoms. He was the only one that was not asymptomatic. So, but it wasn't just Phil Nevin. Matt Blake, the pitching coach, Reggie Willits, the first base coach, and a few other staff members, plus Gleyber Torres, we find out, did test positive for COVID. He had also had COVID during the winter. So definitely not what you want to hear. Not, I mean, on a baseball level, of course, but just in general, with things seemingly getting better, this is not what you want to hear. It still very much exists. And hopefully this will stop right here. But yeah, I believe it's 8 altogether that have tested positive, but they were able to play. Gleyber actually played the first game, and then he was, of course, out for the next 2 games, and I think he'll be out now potentially for like another week plus. Like, even if he tests, I think expect him to not be back too soon, but it's always a fluid situation with this, so you never know. That was definitely a major point of this series, and it kind of felt like before the first game, like, this series could get shut down completely. It was up in the air, but they did play each game. And the Yankees have been fortunate in that way this year, that they have been able to get their games in and aren't going to have to deal with any type of doubleheaders and crazy schedules at the end of the season. Again, that needed to be addressed, and I hope that they'll certainly come back healthy, and hopefully this will kind of just be a blip on the radar, and this isn't something that we're going to see throughout baseball and just in general. You know, and not just that, in terms of injuries, we're seeing it start to crop up where Aaron Hicks has a wrist issue after he was scratched from the first game with, I believe it was a shin. I forget what it was. Bruce shin, maybe? He had fouled the ball off his leg. That was the reason why he was out for that first game of the series. But then he also missed the third game, and they're still looking at that MRI. So I don't know what that's going to lead to exactly. And then also Gio Urshela, who came back and played the full series. I think he might get a day off, starting with the Baltimore series. And Luke Voit just came back. I'm probably forgetting some, Aaron Judge. That's always kind of a day-to-day situation. So the injuries definitely are starting to pile up. And, the Yankees, I think, have been in pretty good shape considering what they normally are this season. So let's get right into the series. So the first game would be between Jordan Montgomery and Luis Patino. And like I said, no Aaron Hicks. Sanchez catches Montgomery, which we've seen. Luke Voit makes his return. Montgomery was great. Jordan Montgomery was great. One thing that really comes to mind for me, especially against the Rays, but just in general, these games are kind of tough to watch. And I know the Yankees don't play the most exciting brand of baseball. That's part of it. But just, you look at the statistics across the league, pitching is dominating like crazy. Strikeouts are up at a ridiculous rate. It's getting really bad. It really is. I could see, on the fence, fair weather baseball fans saying, I'm not watching this. This is just not a fun product to watch. And I can't disagree. The numbers are crazy. And we're going to definitely talk about some statistics that are just wild. What I'm also seeing too is these umpires, at least in this particular series, were heavily pro pitcher umps. Pitchers were getting calls left and right. I think that I hope that we eventually see robot umps. I'm sorry. That way, at least you'll know what the strike zone is. It changes game to game, and it's really favoring the pitching, and they're already dominating. Yeah, not a great look, and I just hope that some of these umps are truly reviewed and looked at, because, and this isn't even just so much like anti-Yankee stuff. This is just in general. Sometimes the Yankees get the benefit of the calls as well with this. So, really bad, and yeah, very apparent in this Yankees-Rays series. Patino for the Rays is someone that they got in the Blake Snell trade from the Padres. And he had been, in a small sample size, very effective to this point before this start against the Yankees. And the Yankees, in the first inning, would jump out to an early lead on a home run by Aaron Judge. His 8th home run of the season to dead center. And Aaron Judge, I thought, was the best hitter this entire series. Very good job by Aaron Judge at the plate. Where coming into this, he had been struggling a bit. He was definitely a key cog in the Yankees winning the series. So kudos to Judge. So that would make it 1-0. And, Montgomery gets a 1-2-3 first. He gets a 1-2-3 second. In the third, with one out, DJ LeMahieu would single. Giancarlo Stanton would walk. Then 2 pass balls in a row by Mike Zunino lead to DJ LeMahieu scoring. And Giancarlo Stanton goes to third. So when runs are at a premium, that is gigantic. So the Yankees make it 2-0. And with that runner on third being Stanton and 1 out, Judge hits a screaming line to the left. But because it was hit so hard and Stanton was on third, the run was not able to score. So, and then Gio lines out. So unfortunate that they weren't able to make it 3-0, especially because Yankee killer Mike Zunino hits like a 470-foot bomb to center field. So Zunino cuts the lead to 2-1. But Montgomery was able to work his way through. And in the fourth, there was a leadoff double by Manuel Margot. And he was able to work through that, getting a couple of strikeouts along the way that inning. And Josh Fleming would come in for Patino, which wasn't a surprise. He went 4 innings. He gives up those 2 runs. But, Montgomery doing his thing, ends up going 6 innings. Not just that, gives up 2 hits, that home run to Zunino and that double to Margot. The 1 run, of course, is 1 walk and 9 strikeouts. And Montgomery isn't exactly a strikeout pitcher. The Rays strike out more than anyone in baseball. So it's kind of interesting where the Rays have a speed element, and I would still say like a situational baseball element to their game, but they do strike out a lot, more than the Yankees do. So, and that was on full display this series. Boy, was it ever. And so Montgomery strikes out 9. A really excellent performance from Jordan Montgomery, where once Zunino makes the home run to make it 2-1, you're getting a little bit worried, but he was able to lock it down. So that would make it 2-1. With 2 outs, on a 1-0 pitch to Gary Sanchez, he wanted to call timeout, didn't get it, and then Fleming threw a ball. At this point, it's kind of perplexing because on the one hand, Gary wanted the timeout, but then Zunino's pissed off because he doesn't get the strike call. So it's 2-0, and Gary, I can't even describe it. I feel like when Gary thinks less, it works out. Gary hits a home run to right center field, which is what I've been asking for a while. So when Gary hits these mammoth home runs to left field, I'm happy about it. But in my mind, it's like, all right, well, I'm not seeing the old Gary Sanchez that I know is at its best. So this was, while I think probably just a one-off, really important home run from Sanchez to make it a 3-1 lead. And he has been decent lately. For him, he has been. And this is someone who doesn't like the guy. So Jonathan Loaisiga comes in to pitch the 7th, and I think the plan right away was for him to go 2 innings, especially because in the 7th, he would get 2 quick outs, walk Brandon Lau, and then strike Mike Zunino out. The Yankees in the 8th, should be noted, get a leadoff double by Stanton, then a single by Judge, so it's first and third, no out. And unfortunately, Gio Urshela hits a ground ball to second, and they throw Stanton out at home. Probably not smart for Stanton to run on that play, but at the same time, Judge was so close to Lau, that who was the second baseman, that it could have worked out where he could just tag Judge and then get the double play, and Stanton may have just stayed at third. So kind of just an unideal situation there in general, and Gio Urshela, who normally gets the job done in those spots, didn't there. And then Luke Voit grounds into a double play. So Voit, it's been, he didn't play the 3rd game in the series, 2 games for Voit, nothing to show for it. And, hopefully he'll get going. But grounds into double play there. Loaisiga pitches the 8th and gave up a 1-out single to Brett Phillips, but was able to hold him scoreless. So 3-1 Yanks. We go to the bottom of the 9th. Chapman comes in, and Austin Meadows hits kind of little looping pop to short, and Gleyber misplays it. Either he should have laid back and tried to then throw Meadows out, or make a full-on dash to try to catch the ball. He totally in-betweens it, and it's an error. Now, again, we didn't know at the time about his COVID situation. Not that that really involves that individual play, but again, that should be recognized. So now, okay, runner on first, tying runs up. There is a wild pitch. Chapman is kind of losing the strike zone. Wild pitch, and Meadows goes to second, but Gary Sanchez gets a good hop off the wall and guns him out at second. So Sanchez hits the home run and then is able to rectify the Gleyber mistake, and that felt like the game right there. So awesome job by Sanchez late in the game on offense and defense, especially because then Yandy Diaz would walk. But luckily, Kevin Smith lines out to Gleyber, and then Brandon Lau strikes out. So a little bit of a shaky outing for Chapman, also hurt by the error. But Yankees come away with a 3-1 win. Again, outstanding job by Montgomery. Loaisiga with 2 scoreless innings. Chapman with another save. In this one, Aaron Judge gets him on the board early with that home run. And Gary Sanchez with a big home run and that big defensive play. Definitely good stuff there. And the thought was, like I said in the last episode, try to split the non-Cole game. So the Montgomery start and the Tyone start, split them. And so you get that Montgomery win, and so now you go into Garrett Cole's start, feeling good that maybe they can take the series. And this would be Garrett Cole against a combination of Colin McHugh and Ryan Yarbrough. McHugh getting the early innings, and then Yarbrough, the bulk guy. So in this one, it would be Higashioka, of course, catching Cole, as we've seen, and Tyler Wade replacing Gleyber Torres, who at this point in time was on the active roster, and they were going through tests, but he would not play. Another pitcher's duel. And you'd expect it from Cole, but you don't love it when it comes from McHugh and Yarbrough if you're the Yankees. But in this one, in the first inning, Tropicana Field, it is one of the worst, if not the worst, stadiums in baseball, where Austin Meadows hits a fly ball that hits the catwalk. Probably would have been just a routine fly to Judge, but it ends up bouncing close to the infield in between LeMahieu and Voit. And with Cole on the bump, it's specifically annoying because you know how good he is and how much of a perfectionist he is. And on the one hand, it's good because he can get out of it, but also in these Rays-Yankee games, one run can be the difference. And it was in this game. But he was able to, not let that be a problem. Cole, pretty economical early and, keeping that pitch count low. But in the 4th was one of their better chances where they get a couple of 2-out hits by Judge and Gio, and then Luke Voit grounds out. That was as good as it got early, and we've seen the Yankees just struggle to get hits. That's been a thing pretty much for most of the season. Then in the 5th, Clint Frazier gets ejected. Like I've been saying, this ump has been just awful, terrible. Didn't seem like Clint said a whole lot, Maybe he said the magic word. I have no idea. But Clint gets tossed. So Frazier's first ejection of his career. It's been a rough go for Clint. I think he's batting around 140. He's not getting it going. And he's getting chances, and the alternatives aren't great, and that's going to keep him in the lineup, but he's not getting it done. And this is someone who I like, and it's just not happening. Like I said, just zeros on the board until the 7th. Ryan Thompson had come in the 6th and struck out LeMahieu and Stanton. So Judge leads off with a single and then gets a double. So that combination added again as they were earlier in the game with back-to-back hits. So second and third, no outs. And Luke Voigt, to his credit, hits a hard smash ground out to third. No run scores. So that wasn't his fault. He hit it hard. It's too bad. I thought that I think he may have taken a pitch. I think that's what it was. He took a pitch, and I think he could have just maybe drove to the outfield earlier, but you can't get on him too badly because he really smashed it. So what was surprising was that they bring in the lefty Jeffrey Springs to flip Hicks over to the right side, which has been his better side. I didn't quite understand that. Now, Gardner was on deck, so I can understand bringing in Springs for Gardner. I don't really know why they brought him in for Hicks, and I thought maybe they'd pitch a little carefully to him with the base open. And on an 0-2 pitch, Hicks gets the big sac fly. Just sticks the bat out, gets it to, right center. Great piece of hitting by Hicks. And Judge scores, and it gives the Yankees a 1-0 lead. And it was all they would need, as Garrett Cole was simply phenomenal. Phenomenal. And in his last inning of work, he would strike out the side in the 8th. So his final line is 8 innings, 4 hits, no runs, no walks, and 12 strikeouts, which I believe that's the 3rd time that he's had 12 strikeouts, no walks, no runs, and I think in 8+ innings, something along those lines. The statistics are crazy. He, on the season, has 3 walks and 78 strikeouts. Part of that is a product to what we're seeing. Like I said, an increase in strikeouts and, pitching is really dominating the game. Still, it's crazy. And there's a lot of times where we'll get to a 3-ball count and think, all right, it's eventually going to happen. He's going to walk someone, and it doesn't. And what's even crazier is that he has 56 straight walks since his last walk. What's interesting about that is that Corbin Burns started the season with 58 straight strikeouts, and then he finally walked someone today at the end of his outing. He walked Tommy Edman. Cole can break the record. He actually tied Curt Schilling, who had 56 straight strikeouts. Now Corbin Burns temporarily holds the record at 58. So Cole is 2 strikeouts away from tying the record and 3 strikeouts away from breaking it. So if he can get 2 or then 3 strikeouts without a walk, he breaks that record. And he has been everything that you could ask for. He just has a bulldog mentality. He looks like an animal on the mound. And when the going gets tougher and the games get more important, he rises to the occasion. So this was someone that I wanted the Yankees to bring in. And so far, he's been worth every penny. He is must-see TV. And I'm just so happy that he is in pinstripes because it's just been exciting. And I actually wanted him to start the 9th. That's how much faith I have in him. And Chapman, I just felt like was a little erratic the night before, has pitched a lot recently, and hasn't been amazing against Tampa. I wasn't surprised, especially since last time when Cole was at only 97 pitches, they took him out. I figured that the 8th inning, he probably, emptied the gas tank, and that was going to be it for him. So Chapman comes in the 9th, and Arozarena flies out, and then look who comes up. Mike Brasso for the rematch, and Chapman strikes him out. So do I wish that we could have maybe replaced that one for what happened to the LDS? Yeah. But in the moment, it was pretty sweet that he was able to strike Brasso out. And then Margot pops out. So Chapman gets the job done, gets the 1-2-3 inning. Yankees win the series 1-0 thanks to Garrett Cole. It's just, there's only so much I can say. And so that moves Cole up to 5-1. And yeah, so Yankees going for the sweep. But you kind of knew it wasn't going to happen. It would have been too good to be true to get the sweep at Tampa, especially considering the matchup. Tyone versus Rich Hill was probably the least attractive matchup for the Yankees going in. But it ended up being a lot worse than even that. It shouldn't have been this lopsided, but the Rays end up smoking the Yanks in the final game. And I think it's pretty clear that while Jameson Taillon, I think, had been turning a bit of a corner, as it stands now, he is the clear number 5. I think that much is true. For a while, maybe you could have argued it was Kluber. There was a time when Herman was sent down. But I think overall, Taillon is definitely the number 5 guy. And I think that what they've gotten from this somewhat motley crew rotation, I think some of them have some upside to them, has been mostly really good. Like, not just Cole. I think that these guys have done an excellent job. But Taillon, especially on the road, has not gotten it done. In this game, Sanchez would catch Taillon, which he has been doing. Surprised that Mike Ford was in the lineup against the lefty. I personally, for defensive reasons, and just because Ford is just not a great hitter, I would have gone with Tyler Wade. So keep in mind, Miguel Andujar is called up, and Gleyber Torres is placed on the COVID list. So Andujar starts against the lefty. And what I would have done is I would have just had Gio at third, Wade at short, DJ at second, and Andujar at first, where we saw him against Washington. Instead, what they did was they went with Andujar at third, Gio at short, DJ, of course, at second, and then Ford at first. Just didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. It honestly would not have made a difference in the outcome. In the first, bottom of the first, he gets 2 outs, and then Margot hits a pop-up. I mean, I've seen this a lot this year. Yankees outfielders are playing very, very deep. I just don't understand it. They've had a lot of pops just drop right in front of them, and that happened again. This, to me, I'm not sure if you want to blame it on the coaching staff, if you want to blame it on the outfielders themselves. Probably a little bit of blame to both. But it's a single for Margot. Keeps seating going. And then Brandon Lau hits a double. Second and third. And then first pitch, Yandy Diaz smashes a 2-run single up the middle, 2-0. While Taillon deserves blame for not being able to stop the bleeding, you would have liked to have gotten out of that inning with that Margot pop-up. So 2-0 Tampa after 1, which already you're thinking, this isn't good. In the top of the third, you get a leadoff walk by Brett Gardner. And then DJ LeMahieu, who's been scuffling. He really has been. DJ LeMahieu on the year is batting .264. And I know hitting is down across baseball. So LeMahieu, in comparison to his teammates, .264 is actually really good, sadly. As someone who's a huge fan of his, it's just not looking quite right yet this year for him. And you just hope that he can turn it around. He grounds out to third. Then Stanton flies out. Judge gets hit by a pitch, and then Gio flies out. So when Gardner gets leadoff walk with the top of the order coming up, you really wanted to do something there. And then in the bottom of the third, a leadoff walk to Rosarena, which you never want to do, and Austin Meadows hits a 2-run homer, 4-0. And at that point, it's over. It is over. At that point in time, Yankees aren't coming back from 4-0 down with 6 innings to go at the Trop after they've already won 2 games. Then in the fourth, Gary Sanchez gets a leadoff walk, and it does nothing. Mike Ford pops out, Clint Frazier strikes out, and Miguel Andujar grounds out. Not good. Not good at all. Taillon ends up going 4 2/3, gives up 6 hits, those 4 runs, 2 walks, and 9 strikeouts. And that's good for him, and it also speaks to the aptitude of the Rays. The Rays give up, they strike out all the time. But still, 9 strikeouts for Taillon in 4 2/3 innings is good. He does have swing and miss stuff, but not a good outing for Jameson. Michael King comes on, who was sporting a 0 ERA. It's been a good year for Michael King. He hasn't been in the biggest of spots for the most part, but getting the job done when he's been called upon. So he comes in the 5th, gets out of it. In the 6th, Aaron Judge gets a leadoff double, continuing his good play. Urshela strikes out, then Gary Sanchez singles, continuing his decent play. And then, so it's first and third, 1 out. And Luke Voit was available off the bench. Rich Hill's still in the game, the lefty. Mike Ford's up. I didn't think at the time about Voit. I kind of forgot that he was available on the bench. But Boone after the game said that he would have used him for a later situation. Part of me just isn't surprised, I guess, more so than anything. Not saying I agree or disagree with it. I'm not shocked. To Ford's credit, he hits a line drive that's a double play. So don't get me wrong, Mike Ford is horrible. Absolutely terrible. He is batting .095. Look, we know what he is, but unfortunately, he hits it right at Joey Wendell, who gets the double play. Then in the bottom of the 6th, the scoreless year for Michael King ends Leadoff walk to Wendell. Again, never want to have that leadoff walk. But Rich Hill wasn't affected by it twice. And then Kevin Smith gets a single. Then he does strike out Phillips and Brasso. But of course, because he hadn't done anything yet all series, another Yankee killer, Randy Arozarena, hits a 3-run homer to make it 7-0. And so we have a complete blowout on our hands here. Eventually, we move to the bottom of the 8th. Justin Wilson comes in. It's been a rough go for Justin Wilson. And even though he had that good outing in extra innings against the Nationals, that did not change the fact that he got brought in mop-up duty. So usually that's reserved for like Luis Cessa, which I've been upset about, but Cessa lately hasn't been great. But they didn't even go to Cessa. He was actually warming up because Justin Wilson got in so much trouble that they almost had to burn another arm. Wilson is clearly behind Lucas Licky and Wandy Peralta in the left-handed depth chart, and Zach Britton hasn't even returned yet. So you kind of know where this is going. It starts off with Gary Sanchez having a catcher's interference. So we've seen that a lot from Gary the last few years. It's not great. I mean, at least it happened in a 7-0 game, but yeah, Sanchez with the catcher's interference, and it would snowball a bit from there. Brett Phillips singles, who's a lefty. I don't believe he's a switch hitter. I think he's just a pure lefty. Mike Brasso grounds out. Arozarena walks, and then you get a 2-run double by Austin Meadows, also a lefty off of Wilson. It has not been good for him. He's not really needed, so much so, but he had a great 2015 season, which was a while ago with the Yankees, and had a couple of fairly productive years with the Mets the last 2 years. He was decent. With him, I think the big issue for me was always the walks. But for a lefty, he's got a power arm, strikes guys out. It's just not working. And they know that, and he's not being used in many high-leverage situations unless it's pure necessity. So that makes it 9-0. And then in the 9th, Hunter Strickland comes on for the Rays. Gio gets a leadoff single. Gary Sanchez doubles. Mike Ford walks. And with bases loaded, Clint Frazier, we've seen get some of his few RBIs in 9th inning, totally random spots. He's not even able to get the RBI here. The run scores, but it's a double play. So no RBI for Clint. The shutout's over. It's 9-1, and then Miguel Andujar flies out. Andujar now is 0 for 13 this year. And I like the guy so much. He's such a good hitter. He really is. Like he's so good at making contact. He's not one of those strikeout guys, but he's hitting no line drives. It's been consistent. It's just ground outs and pop-ups and nothing. And he did really well in AAA. And 2018, he was runner-up for Rookie of the Year behind Shohei Ohtani, and he finished ahead of Glaber. And then he gets hurt in 2019. Gio Urshela bursts onto the scene, and Andujar just has never been the same since. He really hasn't been, and it's sad to see. I mean, Clint and Andujar both, it's been disappointing. Yeah, a lot of the young kids for the Yankees that have been in their system for a while, they're getting worse at a pretty rapid rate, and you hope that they turn it around, but I think that's going to be a talking point at some point. So, Yankees win the series, and now they head to Baltimore. It'll be Kluber against Dean Kramer. Then it will be Herman against Jorge Lopez. And then it'll be Montgomery versus John Means, who has been just unbelievably good this year. John Means he has a 1.21 ERA. He threw a no-hitter against the Mariners. So, I think that you really want to win those first 2 games if you can. And I'll be very happy with 2 out of 3 at Baltimore. Again, sweeping, that's not even on my mind. Baltimore has been playing some pretty competitive ball. It's a division opponent. So sign me up for 2 out of 3. One thing that I'm going to be interested in, Higashioka has been catching Cole, obviously, and Kluber. But the way things line up, Sanchez has been getting Montgomery, and then lately Herman has been Sanchez has been catching Herman lately, but they're going to have to split those two. I think that Higgy will still catch Kluber tomorrow, but here's my overall point. Sanchez, whether I like it or not, he is now going to be the one that gets at least 3/5 of the games. It's just going to happen. It is. And Higgy will almost always get Cole. Kluber, I'm interested in seeing. I think they'll give Higgy Kluber only because of the fact that Sanchez just played tonight. They're coming in from Tampa. So something to monitor, but that's how it's been. So we'll see what happens. and hopefully the Yankees can continue to win series as they head to Baltimore.